Hello and welcome to the 2025 Seattle International Auto Show. Seattle Auto Show isn't really run by the OEMs as much as it is run by the Washington dealer network, meaning that we're not necessarily going to see any type of concept cars, pre-production cars, or anything like that here. It's mostly going to be cars that are on sale today. The majority of the cars brought here are actually by the dealerships in the local area and whatnot. So just keep that in mind when we're taking a look at the cars today. We're definitely going to highlight custom builds if they have things of that nature, classic cars, owners cars. We're going to take a look at what are the latest model of cars that are going to be on sale next year. We're treating today as an exercise for Andrew behind the camera here. And the reason why we are filming Andrew's perspective on all this is because Andrew actually needs to buy a work vehicle for the next year. He's looking at an EV as like a business vehicle. And so some of the commentary that we're going to be giving is actually from a very real world perspective from someone who's actually going to spend money on a vehicle this coming year. We're going to be looking at real world charging speeds, comfort, usability. All those things are going to be accounted for on top of just, is this car cool or not, right? So stay tuned for all of that. Hey guys, before we get into the rest of the video, I just want to take this time to thank you so much for watching our videos. It really means the world to us. This is not our full-time job. This is totally something that we do for fun. And we just really appreciate you being here. Just hope that the videos that we put out may have helped you in some way in your car buying process or in just your journey of exploring, of being a car enthusiast. We've been asked several times by people how they can support us. And so if you feel inclined to do so, we have a Fanded, and I will leave the link for that here. And it's just a great way for you to be able to support us financially if you're inclined to do so. If you've ever found our videos to be helpful at all, if you ever needed advice from us, it's a great way to give back and help support this channel. We've actually turned off monetization for all of our videos. If there is an ad, that's actually for copyright reasons, and the ad revenue for that goes towards the artist of a song that we've used in that specific video. And so yeah, if you ever want to support us, this is gonna be the best way to do it. But without further ado, let's get back to the video. So we're gonna look at the Kia Carnival because Andrew really wanted to look at the Kia Carnival. And we're gonna take a look at this back row seat here. When I was at the Electrify Expo or whatever, that model had the extension for the footrest. That was fantastic. I don't think this has that. If you can imagine the seat going back.
Does this one not have it?
This one doesn't have the footrest.
Doesn't have the captain's chairs.
But I did try the one with the footrest, and that one actually, I believe, not only goes forward and back, but actually goes diagonal, so you could take up a lot of the rear legroom of the third row, and then you can just lounge. That thing's crazy. But
now Kia calls this an MPV. It's not a minivan, it's an MPV. Not to be confused with the Mazda MPV.
It's a minivan.
Shouldn't look this hot or aggressive.
Now I have some concerns about the Carnival because I think it looks too good. But joking aside, minivans are the way to go. We're a big fan of minivans here as Clutch Kick.
They're as versatile as a truck almost.
Yeah, almost, yeah. The big thing for me though, Andrew, is that if you need 3 rows, you buy a minivan. Right? None of this, like so many of these SUVs, they get the 3 row and you can't fit anything in the trunk, right? And that's the problem is it can carry, you know, those 3 row SUVs, they can carry 7 people, but they can't carry 7 people's worth of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that the minivan does best. And it's going to be, you know, a much more efficient package. It's going to be a little bit more fuel efficient.
On the sliding doors, easier to get in and out of parking spots. You've got captain's chairs.
Less chance of kids banging the door.
Exactly.
You know, into someone.
Did you notice this one has a blacked out badging?
Oh, does it?
Again, on a minivan. It reminds me of the Chrysler Pacifica. The S.
Yeah. Andrew's dad had a Chrysler Pacifica. That was also too hot for a minivan. That had like big blacked out wheels.
This is just excessive. That's unnecessary.
But this is what I would buy for a minivan. This or a Sienna probably. Oh, this is a hybrid. Fantastic. This is just not the plug-in hybrid version. That's all.
I believe that it doesn't come in all-wheel drive as a hybrid, which is a huge miss.
I don't know if the gas version comes in all-wheel drive.
Actually, I think they're all front-wheel drive.
Okay.
For Kia.
Okay, that is a big
miss because I think only the Sienna is.
I believe so.
Maybe Chrysler's Pacifica has an all-wheel drive version, but I think Sienna's kind of.
But then you have to have a Chrysler Pacifica.
Because Odyssey is front-wheel drive only as well.
It is. So this is the Kia K5. I think this is a facelift, Andrew. Facelift. Must be the same platform as when they first called it K5. Either way, regardless, K5 replaced the Optima. Optima is the Camry competitor, I think. And so it's either this or Camry.
Because Forte is a Corolla competitor.
That's right. And this looks amazing. I never thought I would see the day we would see a Kia Camry competitor with matte gray paint. This reminds me of the Supra that we had a couple of years ago. But it's a Kia. This is amazing.
Amber DRLs. It's very interesting. Kia really loves their Amber DRLs.
Okay, so about the Amber DRLs, this is what I find quite interesting, right? That's the one thing I didn't like about the Telluride versus the Palisade, right, is that it had the amber DRLs, and I believe they removed the amber DRLs a couple of years later, right?
But they're bringing it back. Oh, look at the GT brake calipers.
Oh my goodness gracious.
So we've got a Camry competitor with green brake calipers. I wonder if those are improved brakes or if those are just a caliber paint job.
I don't know. Whatever the price is, I would pay for lime green brake caliper. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I want Andrew to push in on this ducktail.
Oh, wow.
Trunk right there. Go for that side profile.
This car is way too hot for what it is. There's no reason an entry-level Kia should look this hot, man. Panoramic sunroof.
Oh, added to in place of GT line. Okay, yeah. So the base car is a 2.5.
This is an actual GT.
This is an actual GT. So it gets a 2.5 liter four-cylinder, 290 horsepower, 311 pound-feet, 8-speed dual clutch transmission.
Still front-wheel drive on the
Still front-wheel drive. Yeah. They don't have an all-wheel drive version.
Stickers for 34.
So GT line, you can get an all-wheel drive. But of course, GT line is just using the standard.
It's just an appearance
engine.
package.
That's just an appearance package, yeah.
So the only all-wheel drive version
is the GT line, correct. All right, we're gonna take a look at the EV6 here.
So this is the midlife refresh on it.
Midlife refresh, very important because they added the NACS port, right? They added the Tesla port.
And they moved it.
And they moved the port, which is quite interesting. So back when it was a J1772 port slash CCS, it was actually on this side. When they moved to the Tesla plug, right, they actually moved it to the same side as Tesla has, which is really convenient. However, on the IONIQ 5, which is the exact same car underneath, they did not. They left it on the other side, even though they moved to the Tesla port. We'll start with the back seats there. Pretty spacious. Now, we reviewed the EV6. We've enjoyed the EV6.
So one thing I'm not a huge fan on is the new lights, the star lights, I think they call them. So they got rid of the tiger eye lights.
Oh, you don't like this new type of
I don't know if I like it or not.
I see.
I think it looks good in person. I think it looks better in person. So this is one of the cars in contention as far as a work vehicle that I'm looking at. Midlife refresh. So I think the battery got a little bit bigger. I think it's now an 80, I want to say 82, maybe 84 kilowatt up from 77. So a little bit more range. They did a refresh on the front here. I think you've got a light bar on the higher trims now. Overall shape's the same. As we discussed, they moved the NACS port or the charge port from the right side to the left side. One of the other things that got changed here, let's go look at the inside real quick. So this is running their new CCS. I think that stands for Connected Car System. Doesn't look like it's on right now, but it's got a whole new operating system in here, and it's not software updatable on the old vehicle. So it's actually a really big change. It's a lot faster, a new CPU. It'd be like the new MCU in a Tesla. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm looking at these is it's just so much faster. The layout's better. If you recall on our EV6 video, we really hated the placement of the speedometer, and the owner of that vehicle also hated the placement of the speedometer. You couldn't see it. So they've actually redesigned it so the speed's in the proper place now. All around better there. More physical buttons. So these used to be capacitive buttons on the top trims. They're now actual physical buttons. So we always love when they bring back physical buttons.
It's ironic the buttons that we wanted were only on the lower trim.
Yeah.
Because they thought fancy meant that we do a gloss black capacitive.
And so it's really nice to see them bring back buttons here. New steering wheel. So this is the new 3-spoke. I guess people didn't like the 2-spoke. I actually really like a 2-spoke steering wheel.
I hate a 2-spoke
because I can stick my hand right here and rest it. I guess you got a little hole here. It's weird the drive mode button, the placement of it. I think this is really silly. On my Nero, it's actually right here. So while you're holding at 9 o'clock, you can just hit it. Now I have to reach down here and press it. That's kind of silly. So when the IONIQ 5 and EV6 came out, one of the biggest complaints was neither one had a rear windshield wiper. So you've got these hatchbacks with no wiper. The IONIQ 5 mid-refresh, they got the windshield wiper. It actually came out with the IONIQ 5N. The 5N debuted the wiper first, then the refresh got it. EV6 did not, so you still have no wiper here. You're gonna have to use some sort of rain spray in order to keep this back glass clear. One of the interesting things with almost every one of these EVs on the market right now is when you're looking at a dual motor spec, dual motor with the largest batteries at highway range, so like 75 miles per hour real world highway range, you're only looking at about 200 miles of range. So even though they all say 300 plus miles, that's an EPA estimate that mixes highway and city. But at 75 miles per hour, that's the great equalizer. And so when I'm shopping for an EV, I need a car that can get more than 200 miles of range, because it doesn't matter how fast the charging is. It's the hassle of having to stop multiple times, get off the freeway, pull into a parking lot, plug in, use an app, authenticate. That all takes time, right? So that's 10 to 15 minutes per charge stop of just getting the charging going. So it's great that you can do 10 to 80% in 18 minutes, but you're now adding another 15 minutes every time you stop for all the other stuff. So I need a car that I can go from Spokane to Seattle with one charge not 2 stops. And so it's really difficult when these are only doing about 200 miles at highway speed. So that's one thing I'm looking at. You know, right now I think Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, obviously, those are all going to do closer to 300 miles of highway range. Price delta is a lot higher on some of those, Rivian and Lucid, obviously. So Tesla is still kind of the standard bearer there as far as actual real-world highway range. And where this really matters is in the winter. So in the summer, I don't really mind. I'm getting a much better range anyway. Charging's faster. But in the winter, you're facing a lot of different issues. If you're running winter tires, which you should even on an all-wheel drive vehicle, that's going to cut your range by 10 to 20%. Cold weather, that's going to cut your range by 10 to 20%, even with a heat pump. So between those two variables right there, that's 20 to 40% reduction in highway range, which is already a lower number than the EPA figure. So realistically, this car might only get 160 miles of highway range in the winter. That's 2 charge stops. And your charge speed is going to be slower. Even with battery preconditioning, it helps, but you're not going to get as fast of a charging as you get in the summer.
All right, so this is the Kia EV9. It's a 3-row electric SUV. We wanted to look at the front here before we closed it.
So unlike my Niro, it's actually got somewhat of a frunk. It's not quite a Tesla or Rivian or Ford.
It's not, which is confusing to me because this car isn't a compliance car, right? This is a car that was designed from day one to be an EV, so a little bit confusing on that front. But what do we think about the styling, Andrew?
So I think I'm in the camp of EV9. I think you like IONIQ 9 more. I think
so.
this looks properly aggressive. IONIQ 9 definitely looks more like a spaceship, which we'll see when we show it.
I think they both look great. I think this kind of looks like a more futuristic version of the Palisade right next to it. Or not the Palisade, the Telluride.
Which is just being redesigned to look more like the EV9 now. It's definitely got that look going for it. I love those individual LEDs in the headlights. Yeah. Those kind of jewel eye. I think Honda did that back in the day.
Yes, on the Acuras.
On the Acuras.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Wheels are quite interesting with the Kia logo off center.
They're doing aero in a really unique way. These square kind of square designs, right, but still aero.
If you have to do an aero cover cap anyways, right, might as well make it look
door handles. So they're not the pull ones like on the EV6. They're actually handles that come out fully.
I mean, the EV6 is similar. The EV6
but they tilt out.
They tilt out.
They're breadsticks, I believe they call those. These are actual handles.
The important thing, though, to remember.
Look, they put the charge port on the wrong side.
That's quite interesting. Well, let's see. So they switched the NACS to the Tesla plug here, but then it's on the wrong side. This is kind of what I was talking about with the Carnival. This is the downside of 3-row SUVs, right? It's just, okay, you can fit, 6 or 7 people, 6 in this case because of the captain's chairs, but
I think they need to throw this battery and motor in the Carnival and they'd have a winner.
Maybe, but then it might be using up some of the space that we're talking about.
Let's see the tailgate down. So one of the reasons I like the EV9 is the back of it.
Okay.
Actually looks more cohesive than something like the new Santa Fe.
Okay.
So the new Hyundai Santa Fe, which I hope they have and we can show you, looks like they just forgot to design the back. It's just flat.
Right.
This actually looks pretty good. And doesn't have a rear light bar. So they're bucking the trend there because that's all in right now.
Do you know much about the range of these? Like, is it pretty good for what is going to be a family road trip?
Let's take a look at the board here. I think it's pretty competitive. I think it's around 300 EPA, but again, probably highway 200 miles.
So let's take a look here. So 280 miles range. Yep. And again, like Andrew was saying earlier, this is on a good day, right? This is when it's like warm. This is when you're doing less than 75 miles an hour.
But I'm glad they're making this because 3-row SUVs are one of the most popular class and segments in our country right now.
The other thing to consider is I believe this is less expensive than a Rivian R1 S.
Oh, that's a good point. Right? That is a good point. It is.
In terms of 3-row SUVs, what do you have? You have this, you have the IONIQ, the Hyundai IONIQ version, which is the IONIQ 9. And then you have the Rivian R1S, and then Tesla Model X, which is a very terrible.
Lucid Gravity.
Lucid Gravity.
Which is an electric minivan.
It is an electric minivan. I love the Lucid Gravity. I took videos of that back at the Electric Expo back in the summer. But take a look at the price here. EV9 starts rear-wheel drive $54,000 versus all-wheel drive Lotus $71,000. So this almost finishes where Rivians start, I believe.
Now, if you're comparing it against a Telluride,
right,
it's in a different class. Some people are like, oh, this is way more than a Telluride.
Right.
Correct. But it's also way less than a Rivian.
All right, Andrew, tell me about this color.
So that's my Niro. That's in the hybrid version of it. That's called Cityscape Green. This is like the green blue. That's a green. I don't know. Kia's got the weirdest color palette right now. They've got like 3 different versions of this gray. That's like a sand brown gray. That's like a gray. That's like a silver gray. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Louis? Do you like these colors?
I think the pastel kind of like a gray thing is kind
I
of
think it's getting played out.
It's been played out a little bit. And to Andrew's point, here's the funny part. This is more like a gray, like a little bit more stone gray, like on the black scale. This is a brown gray.
Yeah.
I think the whole flat pastel gray thing.
And you know, that's like almost a flat green blue.
Yeah.
That's a flat blue green.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I'd like to see some more vivid colors again.
It started with Audi doing Nardo gray, and then everyone hopped in that Nardo gray trend, and now everyone is adding like a.
I like the EV6. I'm glad it has a splash of color. That blue looks good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get it, but you know, it's colorful.
All right, so we have the Mark 8. I believe this is Mark 8.5 GTI, facelift version of the Mark 8. A couple years ago when we came to the auto show, I talked about the capacitive touch controls that are on not just the GTI at the time, but also multiple Volkswagen models. We got the capacitive steering wheel button, we got the capacitive HVAC buttons, we got the capacitive headlight buttons, which also house the defrost window buttons on the left there of the steering wheel.
This one did not have the 2 window switches for the front, though.
It did not have the 2 window switches. It does have 1 window switch for every single window, thankfully. And someone got very upset with me in the comments that I called this out. And they ended up deleting their comments. So the big thing we're going to take a look at today when the car clears out is I want to know if Volkswagen Boss followed their word of adding physical buttons back to the steering wheel, at the very least, right? Because the whole point of steering wheel buttons is that you can kind of feel them to operate them. You don't have to look down and make sure that you're pressing the right ones and whatnot. And it's funny to me because they put these buttons on their higher end steering wheels, right? Multiple Volkswagen products. On the higher end trims, you get the capacitive buttons. On the lower end trim, you get the proper physical buttons. And so they had the part this whole time. And so it was always curious to me, how come Volkswagen did not put this on the GTI? So we're going to take a look here in a little bit, and we'll see.
What do you think of that DRL going across the front here?
Well, the DRL's been here since pre-facelift. Andrew's talking about this. And I don't know if they changed it, but before, this light bar was only available, I think, on the mid-trim and the Autobahn trim. And so it wasn't available on the base car. I think the light bar is okay. I know it's very trendy. The light up badge, though, a little bit interesting.
Pretty gimmicky.
Yeah, a little bit gimmicky. Everyone's doing the light up badge nowadays. But let's take a look here, and I am pleased to report that, alas.
So we got Nardo Gray over here, right?
We have, I believe it's called Moonstone Gray is what this color is called. But they finally brought physical buttons back to the steering wheel. And again, it doesn't make sense to me why it took so long, because they literally had that part in the Volkswagen parts.
But they kept the touch strips for the climate and the volume and everything.
Yeah. So Andrew just reminded me that I did in fact drive a Mark 8.
So we were looking for a Nissan Z for me, and we were at CarMax, so we ended up finding a Mark 8 GTI as well.
It's so funny. I remember driving the Z. I guess this was so forgettable that I forgot about it. Maybe I didn't think it was a huge improvement. I do want to note, Andrew, they finally backlit. Maybe?
I think if it's on, it would be backlit.
Yeah, so the problem with these buttons is that they weren't backlit, these capacitive strip buttons, and it relied on like a tiny light to shine down on them, I think.
So they've got physical steering wheel buttons again, but not physical
steering wheel
climate knobs.
buttons.
What do you think of that shifter? I hate that shifter.
This light, by the way, is still, these are all capacitive. The shifter's interesting. I mean, not relevant to me because I would never get a DSG, although I now have to because it's now DSG only. So that's a good point. This is still extremely plasticky. And in terms of how it drove, I can't believe I didn't remember driving one of them. I think I just didn't think it drove a lot better than a Mark 7, right? So in which case, like, I think the Mark 7 looks just as good. Mark 8 might look a little bit better, but I like the interior of the Mark 7 far better. I would say if you're looking for a GTI, I think I would still try to find a good, solid used Mark 7. Man, what a roller coaster. I totally forgot that we drove one of these. Was it a manual? Or was it DSG? It must have been a manual.
I think it was.
Yeah, you didn't drive it then. Okay, so it must have been a manual. Wow. Yeah, it's a shame because I actually really like the look of the Mark 8. Honest to God, I really like the look of it. I think it looks better than the Mark 7. It's a little bit more modern in terms of the interior quality, the user interface, and if it doesn't drive that much more dramatically better than a Mark 7, then we'll see. I can't wait to get hate in the comments for this one, though. I think people are going to be very upset. All right, so this is the Volkswagen ID Buzz, all-electric minivan. Couple things. First and foremost, Andrew, do you know if we got the long wheelbase version or the standard? We
only get the longer one.
Only get the long wheelbase. Okay, that makes sense. When I'm looking at the side, I can kind of see that the window's a little bit more rectangular on the side rather than a square window. The other thing I want to talk about is the pricing. I believe the pricing of the ID Buzz starts at around $20,000 more than a fully loaded Sienna. I know it's two totally different products. I know that this is way cooler than a Sienna, but $20,000 is not a small amount of money. And at the end of the day, you are essentially paying for a really fancy and cool looking minivan. People will have to decide if it's worth it to them, right, to pay that extra.
I think that's one of the big reasons they're having issues with sales in the country, because the pricing is just way too high.
Are they selling better in Europe then, or?
Because they have smaller wheelbase, cheaper versions.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Check out where the camera is on that windshield.
Oh, I didn't think it would be this low. That's quite interesting.
I've never seen an ADAS system where they put the camera on the bottom of the glass.
Yeah, normally it's up here, so it's a nightmare when they're changing the windshield.
Also, imagine rock chips coming right off your hood there.
That's a good point. It also doesn't have the defrosters as well, Andrew.
The rain sensor's in a unique position too.
Yeah, but this could potentially fog up because it doesn't have the defrosters built in. That's quite interesting. Great looking car though. I mean, it's from a style perspective.
So there was a recall on this vehicle for probably one of the weirdest recalls I've seen in recent history. Do you know what it was? Do you remember what it was?
What was it?
It was on the rear seats. There was a recall because I believe there wasn't enough seatbelt latch points for 3 people across. I think we'll have to double check. I think it was designed for two passengers, but because the bench was wide enough to technically fit a 3rd passenger, they were required to put a 3rd seatbelt in the back because they basically only had a left and a right seatbelt latch, assuming that only 2 people would sit in the back. But there's a specific measurement. I think the Department of Transportation, DOT or someone, NHTSA, requires a certain width of a seat bench, and this bench was too wide. So it necessitated Volkswagen to have 3 seatbelts.
Wait. So Volkswagen only put 2 seatbelts in.
Designed the rear seat for 2 people.
Yes, but because it's wide enough to fit 3 people, they say in America, we would say, well, then 3 people are going to try to jam themselves in which case they don't have enough seatbelts for it.
And so they recalled it because there weren't enough seatbelts in the back. I've never seen that recall before.
So what's the fix then? Are they adding like an extra?
We got to look it up. I think they're either shrinking the bench size or they're adding a 3rd latch point. So they've refreshed the ID4, I think 2 or 3 times since it came out. The first generation was pretty bad in a lot of ways. The software was really bad. There were a lot of electronic glitches. Range was not good. They've really made some changes, both to the batteries, to the motors.
I will say the range is not good, but it's very accurate. According to Stefan, his ID4 gets almost exactly what EPA says.
So accurate, but not good to start with.
Right.
Yeah. Which they've
Although he has the rear drive version, so it's like kind of cheating, right?
Fair.
So he gets, he said 260 or 280 very consistently, no matter the weather. But he has the rear drive almost based.
I want to say all-wheel drive was like EPA rated in like the low 200s, like 220, maybe 240.
Right.
But they've put in a bigger battery. I think they've got new batteries, new motors. They even redid the suspension on these a little bit. So quite a few changes. I think a bigger screen, and they fixed a lot of the electronics and software issues. So it's a car that actually has, I've overlooked it and I still wouldn't get one, but it has improved quite significantly within one model cycle.
Yeah.
I do really like these handles. It's got a nice like frosted black, but there's a mechanism underneath there that actually latches. So I think it's electronic, but it is quite nice.
They're all electronic now.
Okay, so this is the bigger screen here. This looks a lot better now. The old one was very small, kind of clunky to use. This one's a lot more intuitive. Everything's, oh wow, that's really fast. These I hate. We've got to get rid of these strips. These are completely useless.
Oh, they changed the gear shifter too.
Gear shifter got changed. It was that weird big blocky
thing.
No,
it still is. It's still a twist.
I think it's smaller though. You're right.
Okay,
the old one was a lot bigger, a lot more awkward.
I see.
Still capacitive buttons on the steering wheel though,
right,
so that's unfortunate.
And also your favorite, your absolute favorite.
Still 2 window switches. This has got to go. This is just cost cutting beyond belief. Also a lot of cheap plastics here. So even though it's much improved, not one that I would get for a couple different reasons. Still use the CCS. Almost everyone's moved to NACS now. I don't know if there's plans to switch to NACS or if they're just slow on it, but that's a big no-no for me. Those capacitive climate controls, absolutely not going to use them. 2 window switches, not going to use that. I think the driving dynamics, though, I think it's just too soft of a car. It's just, for a Volkswagen, which Volkswagen's always been about driving, right? Look at the GTI, look at the Golfs. I think this car is just too soft for me. That's fine in like a Hyundai or a Kia because it's not trying to be something a little extra. But for something that has a little more driving in its DNA, I think they really missed an opportunity to kind of make a GTI adjacent EV. Now in Europe, they have the ID3, and I think they're coming out with a new GTIe or GTE. So we'll see what happens with those vehicles. But this one, I think it just kind of misses the mark. With that said, rear windshield wiper. So that's a big plus there.
Very important when Andrew is car shopping. Gotta have a rear windshield wiper. And honestly, like, it's a very valid thing to look out for. So Andrew really wanted me to talk about the GLI because the GLI is technically, this is the Mark 7.5 generation, so it hasn't moved to Mark 8. So you think it doesn't have the capacitive buttons and stuff, right? But I think over the years, they've actually changed that. I'm a little scared to check. At least for this year, they have the physical steering wheel controls, okay? And they still have the old light switch, because again, this body is still Mark 7, but they removed the physical climate controls and went to capacitive touch for the HVAC.
So what's interesting about that is they didn't just slap in the ID4/GTI screen thing up there. It still has a dedicated volume and tuning knob.
Correct.
But they've got that new weird climate system down there.
And I remember they did this with the Tiguan because Volkswagen had these wonderful, you know, climate controls with physical knobs, and then they went to touch-sensitive HVAC.
So it makes zero sense from a space-saving point of view, which is one of the big reasons everyone moves to touchscreen stuff.
No, it's cost. It's 100% for cost reasons.
Exactly.
So they actually made it worse as time goes on. I wanted Andrew to keep filming because I thought it was really funny, not just that they switched to the capacitive HVAC buttons, but there's actually people on forums that will actually buy like AliExpress versions of those climate controls so that they can switch their perfectly good physical HVAC controls
to the touch controls.
To the touch, yeah.
That's just silly.
That looks like the OEM
That's
ones.
ludicrous.
So they'll go out of their way to go change their old ones to the new. I don't understand.
Ludicrous.
I don't understand. This is the Toyota Crown Signia. In my mind, this is kind of like the old school Venza. It's not an SUV. I don't think Toyota tries to claim it's an SUV. If they do try to claim it's an SUV, it's not an SUV.
It's very wagon.
It is a wagon, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
What do you think of that paint?
The paint's interesting. It's not the right shape. I think the shape of it is fantastic, though. I love that side profile. I've seen these on the road a couple times. I'm like, I kind of want it just for the shape. I think it looks amazing.
It's good shape.
I think if it was like an electric platform, that'd be pretty sweet. But compared
Now they're
to
still
the
doing the Crown.
They're still doing the Crown, which is like a really high-riding sedan. I think Polestar 2, right? It looks like a sedan, but the belt line is extremely high up. I like this color, Andrew. I like the gunmetal gray badges. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
but I hate the ride height. If you're gonna have a sedan, it's got to be low.
You gotta commit. You gotta commit.
Because otherwise, what's the point?
I think they fixed the steering wheel thing that we complained about in the Prius. I think they fixed all of them. So we're looking at the Prius, which looks amazing, right? You can't make Prius jokes anymore. The Prius actually looks amazing. One of the complaints that we had previously, though, when it first came out, is that the steering wheel seemed to adjust with the gauge cluster. By default, the steering wheel is blocking the gauge cluster. So as you move the steering wheel, it continued to block the gauge cluster because it was going up and down with it. I think they've changed it, though, since then. So that the screen stays in place and then you move the steering wheel separately, is what I've seen.
Now, the plug-in hybrid doesn't come in all-wheel drive. The plug-in hybrid is the sportiest version and it is the quickest.
It is, and previous to the tax credits going away, that was actually how you could get the most tax incentives because it's a plug-in hybrid. And honestly, the all-wheel drive one is the way to go. It is a shame, though, because the plug-in hybrid is going to give you a lot more flexibility, right? I will say, though, too, is I can't remember if I've ever driven one or have ridden in one, but Stefan said that there was a terrible ride quality because of the torsion beam rear suspension.
Oh, it's still torsion beam.
It's torsion beam, yeah. So the ride is absolutely atrocious, apparently. He didn't like it. Nice. Okay, so I can move it in such a way that allows me to not block the screen ahead, whereas, again, previously, this would constantly
Some people still complain about the height of that screen. When you put the steering wheel where you need to,
correct,
they still think it blocks it a little
correct.
bit.
So if I were to adjust my seat how I drive, and I know I drive ridiculous, but I drive kind of like this. Steering wheel has to be here. This is kind of what I'm seeing here. So I'm losing about the bottom, let's say, third of the screen or so. This is kind of my POV right here. But otherwise, I quite like the interior. I think it's quite comfortable. If Stefan says it rides poorly, though, I believe him because he's very particular about this thing.
So this is the Toyota BZ, which has been renamed. It was the BZ R2D2 WD40,
yeah.
But it's simplified now. The Subaru Solterra is its twin. When these two EVs came out, they were awful. They were the worst types of compliance cars. Highway range was around 140 to 160 miles. Recharge was like over an hour and a half at a CCS station. Basically phoned in, and yet they still sold a number of them because the Subaru and Toyota faithful wanted a Subaru or Toyota EV. But midlife refresh here, drastically improved. This is one of the biggest midlife refreshes I think I've seen in an EV. We're talking over 100 miles of extra range, It's a pretty significant redesign. Notice the color matching panels here. These were like all weird black gloss before. They redesigned the interior a little bit, faster charge speed. So I think it's much more competitive now. The problem is, because they started off in such a low spot, this massive spec bump basically brought it up to parity with everyone else in the field. So you're not going to see it charge faster than an IONIQ or an EV6. You're not going to see it outrun a Mach-E or a Model Y. It's very much middle of the pack. But hey, if you're a Toyota or Subaru faithful and you just want an EV, a reliable EV, these are much better. I would not recommend the first gen version of these, but this midlife refresh, I think you're in a much better place.
I think they might have sold a lot due to lease deals.
Yes.
I know a guy that has a WRX STI and worked at a Subaru dealership, and he got a lease a Solterra purely because of how good the lease deal was. He couldn't pass it up.
I think that's
but besides those reasons, I'm not sure.
Did you know these don't have a glove box?
Yeah, I don't understand that.
Silly.
The back looks way better though, Andrew.
Much better. Let's go look at the front.
Yeah. We can't go in this one, unfortunately. It's a prototype vehicle. Which again is surprising because generally we're unable to get into the, even have access or look at
the
these prototype
redesigned cabin
vehicles.
looks better.
Yeah. Oh.
So they do have NACS. There is NACS
they covered
now,
it up.
but that's good.
That is NACS. It looks like a NACS shape.
Yep. You know, that's funny. I thought these were supposed to be paint matched fender flares, but they're still the weird.
Maybe a high trim. This might be the off-road version. Look at the tires. It has like the multi-terrain tires.
Yeah.
So I think Audi has been kind of forgotten about amongst the Germans in terms of the luxury German sedans, right? Mercedes, BMW, Audi. I think Audi still makes one of the best looking cars today. We're gonna take a look at this RS7 and that color. That
Think
color's
those are
fantastic.
forged?
Probably. Let's take a look. I'm not sure, but man, do they look good. I think the color, size, the offset, I think it's just fantastic.
Oh, is this their A6? This is the
This is
e-tron?
a S6. This is an S6.
S6, okay.
I like that. This is probably one of the best rear light bars that I've ever seen. It looks like it's not tacked on. It looks like it's done purposefully. Same with that RS7. It has that really nice light bar.
We were talking about Kia and all these colors. Check out these colors here. Check out this. Is this Passport?
Yeah.
Trailsport?
I think so. Trailsport Passport. Let me take a look here. Oh,
look
Pilot. Pilot. Sorry, this is the Pilot.
Look at that Prologue. Look at that Prologue color.
I love that teal. That teal's fantastic.
Okay. Let's talk about this. So this is the Honda Prologue, also known as the GM Chevy Blazer, also known as the Cadillac Lyric, also known as the, what other car rides on this platform?
Acura ZDX.
Acura ZDX, which is now dead after one model year. Great Honda styling, but underneath and in the interior, all GM. GM parts bin everywhere. It does have Honda software, but you'll notice from the light controls to the HVAC to the steering wheel, it's completely GM. It runs on the GM Ultium battery. Actually pretty reasonable range, pretty reasonable performance. I just wish it was Honda developed. I wish it was an actual Honda underneath and not a GM. So that's what I have to say about that.
It's been kind of interesting seeing that the Japanese haven't really embraced EVs.
The Japanese have been really slow to adopt EVs. I mean, we saw that with Toyota and Subaru with their compliance cars, basically. Right. We're seeing that with Honda. Yeah, Nissan has the new Leaf, which we'll see if there's one here on the showroom floor. They've been kind of pushing on that, but yeah, just kind of behind the curve here. So GM switchgear here. The steering wheel's all GM. Notice there's no lights. The lights are controlled via the touchscreen. There's no physical light switch anywhere. You have to go into a touchscreen to find it. This is GM. I do like that it has physical climate knobs and physical toggles here. So this is nice.
Make sure to show that. Make sure to show that.
Physical buttons, we are always a fan of. They feel cheap. They actually have a really nice click. They're just very cheap plastic. There's some rubber on the end here. But these are toggles, also cheap. These feel like mush, like you're just pushing mushy buttons, but physical. This wireless charge pad, kind of crazy. I don't know if there's like just one spot or if the whole spot works. Yeah, just a very cheap GM feel. There's just one paddle here for regen, and then you've got the classic GM volume controls on the back of the steering wheel.
I need to experience this because I don't remember the last time I've ever experienced a American Japanese car. It's been a while.
All right, Lucas, you tell me how it feels in there.
Oh no, this has the gear shift I was talking about. So I had a rental GMC Terrain or something like that. Instead of my Tesla where I go up and down, you have to go back and then up for reverse and back and then down.
That's ludicrous.
And it's not smooth. It is not slick at all.
Feel the climate buttons, and how mushy they are.
Yeah, they're a little mushy, but they exist.
They exist.
They exist. That's
and
good.
physical steering wheel buttons with button blanks on the steering wheel already.
No, it has the back steering wheel buttons.
Yes, which are awful.
Yeah, which GM loves to do.
And one half paddle on the left for regen. No right paddle.
Is it toggling like the regen modes?
I think it just cycles like high, medium, low, high, medium, low.
It's got OnStar, which is funny in the Honda products. This is also all from GM as well.
Door cards are all GM.
Yep. This gear shifter, this is the biggest thing that killed me when I was driving that terrain.
It does have CarPlay though, which the Chevys do not.
Correct. They're actually removing that on their own cars. Unbelievable. I'm going to start with an apology, Andrew, because here I was thinking that Seattle Auto Show wouldn't get prototypes, wouldn't get pre-production cars, and we found both. So what do we have? We found both.
I'm really glad they have a Prelude here. This I've been waiting for a while. It's a very unique platform. It's basically a Honda Civic hybrid. They didn't take the SI motor. It's not a Type R motor. It is basically the base Honda Civic hybrid motor. But what's really interesting is they have a new gear shift system in this. I think they call it like Honda E-Shift or Shift Plus. And basically, because it's a hybrid, they're simulating gear shifts in an automatic mode. So it's still paddle shifters. You have a left and right steering wheel paddle shifter, but it'll let you bounce the tack off the rev limiter and everything. It'll fake hitting red line. I really want to drive one and see how convincing it is. I think in some of the press reviews, previews, they said, it's very similar to IONIQ 5N actually, even though this is not a full EV. They said the simulated gear shifts, because it's all noise pumped into the cabin, it's all fake with computer. So they said it actually drives a lot like IONIQ 5N with the fake gear shift. Now, what we do know is this has Civic Type R suspension, Civic Type R brakes.
Right.
So if you're comparing this to like, oh, well, this is just a Civic Si, I might as well just get an Si because it's cheaper. This apparently handles a lot better because it actually has proper Civic Type R suspension. Really excited. It's also a two-door coupe. How many manufacturers are bringing new two-door coupes to the market right now? It is front-wheel drive, but Honda's really good with front-wheel drive, as we know from driving the Type R.
So let's have you walk around and see what details you like about the car.
I really like the front. It does kind of look like the Prius. There's a lot of side-by-sides of the new Prius.
Oh, no, that's right.
And the Prelude. Well, I think where it really looks good is in the back. So I think the side silhouette's pretty nice. But in the rear, I'm getting a lot of Porsche. Would you agree?
Which is not a bad thing.
Not a bad thing at all, especially when you've got a two-door coupe like this. I like that it's a proper lift gate back there. It's
exactly as
hatch.
a Prelude is supposed to be. I think the challenge with this though is going to be the pricing, because it's priced. Is it priced similar to a Type R? Like
no, it'll be priced. Well, no one knows yet, but it's going to be priced. I think under Type R.
Okay.
But definitely above Civic Si, and probably above Acura Integra A-Spec. So
the pricing is, I think, really how. Oh, there we go.
38,000.
Okay, so it's almost 10 grand cheaper than the Civic Type R.
So the Honda S Plus shift system is what that's called. Now, this is not a BRZ competitor. This is
Absolutely
not a GR86 competitor.
But it's a lot more expensive than a
Which is
BRZ.
very interesting.
Yeah. Andrew just noted we overheard one of the Honda reps jotting down customer information for interest in this vehicle, and he was noting that the person wants one in a manual, except these are automatic only, so not really an option that exists. Andrew, I'm worried that this might suffer from Acura syndrome, though. You want to talk about? We talked about it the other day. I'm worried that this is going to be something that looks better than it drives.
I think so. I like the lowercase spelled out Honda.
I do like that too. That's a new
Classic
thing to do.
Prelude script.
Oh, that's true.
It's $38,000. It looks great, but it's a front-wheel drive hybrid Civic. So you're basically, paying for a $38,000 Civic coupe in a Prelude shell. I don't know, man. With some Civic Type R suspension components, this is going to be a weird one. We really need to just drive it and find out, I think. But I'm with you. I think it's not going to drive as good as it looks. And I think it's just a confused vehicle.
I think price point wise, this is a couple thousand more than a fully loaded BRZ or GR86.
Which is rear wheel drive.
Yes.
Comes in manual.
Yes.
Now this will get 40 to 50 miles per gallon.
Absolutely. But you don't buy a car that looks like this for its efficiency.
I think where they missed the mark,
Yeah.
this could have been a full electric, like the first fully electric small two-door coupe, because you're already hybrid, you're half of the way there.
Right.
Why didn't they just make this an EV and have like a Tesla Roadster, modern day Tesla Roadster essentially?
Right. That's the Honda Prelude.
I'm really glad this is here.
So we have the Civic Hybrid here, which is quite interesting for a number of reasons. First and foremost, the Hybrid is actually a lot more powerful than the Civic Si. So you're getting a vehicle that's actually more efficient and actually more powerful.
You're getting a Prelude.
You're getting a Prelude essentially, right? As Andrew was saying, the Prelude is using a variant of the Civic Hybrid engine. The cool thing too about the Hybrid is that it comes both in sedan and the hatchback, so you have that practicality. You know, there are sport trim models as well, so you get the styling that you're looking for. Only downside for me personally is that it's a CVT only. Totally understand, right? It's a Civic, it's a hybrid drivetrain. They're trying to be as efficient as possible. I get that. But for the general population, if you're not ready to commit to an EV, if you don't have charging at home, if you're looking for a very efficient commuter vehicle, I'm not sure in this class and price range I would get anything else, right? In terms of a brand new compact car, Civic is one of the most spacious in its class.
So you'd get this over a Prius?
I would get this over a Prius. I don't think it's quite as efficient as a Prius, but I think it's awfully close. It's going to be more powerful. It's going to be more fun to drive than a Prius. I like the interior of Civics a lot more than most Toyotas in this price range. And I think it looks fantastic. And again, it comes in a hatchback anyways, like a Prius. Now, I think Mazda 3 drives better than a Civic. However, Mazda 3 doesn't come in a hybrid.
It's not getting 50 miles per gallon.
It's not getting 50 miles per gallon. Back looks fantastic. And also, most importantly, the big difference is Civic has fantastic rear legroom. Honda always has best in-class legroom compared to the competitors. I love the interior. This color is quite cool. Sport hybrid, let's see, starts at $29,000. Sport touring hybrid, $32,000. So it's about on par with the SI for the sport touring version. But for majority of people, if you don't want to drive manual, I don't know if I would buy a non-hybrid version of this if it was in my price range.
So here we have the Hyundai Range Rover Sport. This is the new redesigned Palisade. You know, for the longest time, Mazda was going up market, and they were definitely like punching above their weight class. I think Hyundai and to an extent Kia, they're really punching above their weight class right now. When you look at the interior of this, literally ripped right out of a Range Rover Sport. But this car just looks good for what it is. For a 3-row SUV, this thing looks good. The hybrid is also new, and so it's much more efficient, more powerful. And I think the price delta is only about $2,000 on every trim more for the hybrid. So it's a no-brainer. Like, that is the powertrain to get.
That is unless, of course, the hybrid has less trunk space.
I think it's negligible on this. So this is the Hyundai IONIQ 9. We looked at the EV9 just a little bit ago. So this is basically the twin sibling of the EV9. Lewis likes this design more, is that right?
I believe so.
It's very futuristic, very spaceship. They're doing the whole pixel trend from the IONIQ 5, but everything's a little bit more rounded. So you still have all the pixel lamps, you have all the pixel elements, but the actual fascia is a little more rounded. And then the back, I want to show you the back here. It's got a really cool... So what I really like is how they did the pixel lights with these vertical bars, and then they carried all the way across the center high mounted stoplight. So this whole thing becomes basically a brake light when it runs. Very spaceship, very, very future. I think it's a good like retro future look.
The way it curves down in the back is quite interesting.
It is, isn't it?
I don't know if it's like a good or bad thing. I just think it's quite interesting.
Unique.
It is unique for sure. So I think we probably talked about before how Hyundai has, and Kia has been really pushing the boundaries in terms of driver enthusiast vehicles, right? They hired Albert Bierman for a while from BMW's M division to run the N program, right? M to N, which is quite funny. So now we have the IONIQ 5N, and instead of every other EV manufacturer, right, that's making a simply faster version of their EV, they're actually trying out different things, such as adding synthetic shifts, right? So this thing actually has paddle shifters, and they'll actually use software to simulate shifts as you pull a paddle, and it has the noise as well too that will sound like you're bouncing off the red limiter. There's different noises that you can make. And you know what's funny? Andrew and I talked about this the other day, because what's happening right now in the enthusiast market as far as cars are concerned is people are saying, you know, I really miss the good old days of gasoline engine cars. You know, people are still buying gasoline sports cars because they're really trying to hold on to the gas engine as the powertrain of choice for the enthusiasts, right? And I said to Andrew, I think it's quite interesting that people are so obsessed with that idea and yet are buying modern performance vehicles, right, that are still using a gas engine. Mainly being modern vehicles are so good at being refined that they actually have to pipe in gasoline engine noises into the cabin anyways. They have to pipe in the exhaust, they have to pipe in the induction noises. And then they complain about an EV that's doing the exact same thing. Well, I just think that's a big miss, right? Like, I think the whole point of you know, a gasoline vehicle is to have that raw engine sound, and yet the modern gasoline engine car, these performance cars have to pipe in the sound, and yet people complain about this. I think this is just a fantastic fresh take on what a performance car is. I think it's, you know, is it for me? Is it something that I might buy? I'm not sure yet. When I buy an EV, I don't need it to try to pretend it's a gasoline car. I have a loud manual rear drive sports car that I drive on the weekend. So me personally, I'm not sure. But in terms of outside of the box thinking, in terms of trying something new, I think this is quite interesting, right? A performance EV that's not just trying to be quick, but also trying to add some excitement back to the experience, right?
Why don't you hop in and tell me about the drive position and interior and everything?
Yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a look. First and foremost, Andrew, big improvement, right, is that it no longer has white bezels.
Which they've done on the midlife refresh of the
IONIQ 5. Oh, they did,
5.
thank goodness. The steering wheel's fantastic.
Now, one of the I wouldn't say it's a complaint, but one of the critiques about this car, it has too much customization, which I never thought we would say. But look at the steering wheel. You have
fantastic.
N grin shift, you have N mode, you have boost mode. You've got like just too many buttons, too many controls. In the computer, you can set everything from drift to fake torque to fake noise. It's just give me a sport mode and a normal mode. You know, make your sport mode tuned as optimized as you can.
I really like what they're trying to do here, man.
How's the drive position feel? Because this is still kind of a higher sitting crossover SUV hatchback thing. I think the IONIQ 6N might be more your speed.
It's still too SUV-y for me. I'm more of a sedan coupe type of guy. Seats are comfortable as hell.
Lumbar or no?
No, no lumbar. No, yeah, no lumbar. So you can't have one, Andrew.
Can't have one.
It's over, it's blown. Good adjustment on the seat. Manual seats, which is quite crazy.
On a $60,000+ car, that was another complaint, was the manuals.
Pedal placement's quite good. This is quite snug. The leg support.
Redesigned center console over the base IONIQ 5.
Yeah.
Doesn't slide.
Doesn't slide, okay. This is cool. This is cool. I'm gonna swap you up. What do you think, Andrew? Could you live with these seats? Because I bet you the IONIQ 6N.
This is great. These seats feel great. These are good sports seats.
How's the headrest? You're a headrest guy.
Unobtrusive, perfect. Doesn't push me into the back like the base IONIQ 5.
The logo's
No, I love
lit
these
up.
seats. I wonder if these are very similar to the Elantra N seats, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Very good bolstering.
I love the lit N badge. Can you take a shot of the lit N badge?
I don't think it's backlit right now, but yeah, that should light up.
They were when you were sitting in it. Andrew's really excited to point out that the rear wiper debuted on the IONIQ 5N before the rest of the IONIQ lineup. Is this NACS then?
This is still CCS. NACS is only on the midlife refresh of the base IONIQ 5. So that's a huge miss there.
This is the Subaru Solterra, which of course is the twin to the Toyota BZ that we talked about earlier. It also got all the updates in range. Charge speed got improved as well.
Styling.
Yeah, styling. It's completely different. Solterra also has the color match fenders. That's
yes,
cool.
that is an easy way to tell the difference there.
Oh, no, they moved to NACS.
Yep, NACS on both of them now. Cabin, if you open that up, the cabin is a lot more airy. The screen's been pushed way up front now. Still no glove box though.
That's an interesting oversight. This is very wrong placement for an
Yes, absolutely.
Let's take a look at the back. Can you film the back? The back hasn't changed much, it looks like.
No, other than the color matching.
They softened it a little bit.
A little bit.
Oh, they spelled out Subaru. I believe it had the actual star badge.
Open the liftgate. Let's see how much room we got back here. Pretty spacious. So this is one thing that's kind of crazy is like compare that to some of those others we were looking at. That's got a lot of rear.
Ooh, it's quite good
back
actually.
here.
Quite good actually.
Can you hop in the driver's seat? Tell me what you think of that front screen placement compared to like Prius and.
Oh, this is way better, I think. So if I go like this and then do this, and then I do this. Oh, Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, glorious. So from my driving perspective, I see this. So this is a very important difference than the Toyota version, is that you can actually see the gauge cluster. Yeah, I would get this over Toyota purely because of being able to see the gauge cluster. I can't believe this whole design is completely different. I don't know what this material is. This looks pre-worn.
You know what the biggest problem is for an EV that doesn't have a drive system, a drivetrain? Look at how much wasted tunnel space there is everywhere.
True. That's true.
And dash space.
That's true.
Why is EVs are supposed to be open, airy cabins? Why is this so cluttered?
That's true. I didn't even think about that. This gear shifter is still crazy. You still rolling?
Yeah. Oh no.
There's no.
Leave that open. That is probably one of the worst EV engine bays.
This is a bespoke platform, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so this is the, is it new for this year, Outback? New for this year, Outback. I had an Outback. I had a 1999 Outback. That was the first generation Outback, second generation Legacy.
This doesn't look like a wagon to me.
This is no longer a wagon. I mean, it hasn't been a wagon in a hot while, but it is really not a wagon now. I will say, it's not wagon-like anymore, but it does have the ground clearance of an SUV, and yet the roof line is still quite reasonable. So it's kind of in between still. I don't know. Very spacious though, very long. All right, so this is a Subaru BRZ TS. I believe it has upgraded dampers and has not just Brembo brakes, but also the gold brake calipers. Very iconic Subaru. Not an STI version, all right? It is just like a special package. Looks great. I'm sure it drives great. Me personally, I think I like the styling of the GR86 a little bit more. But I'm so glad this car still exists. I cannot believe they made a second generation. I think I've said it before. I think, you know, I have the first generation car, which was fantastic, and I'm really happy that they sold enough to be able to justify being able to make a second generation. So, yeah, incredible.
This is the Dodge Challenger Daytona in a four-door version. It debuted as a two-door coupe. This is the electric version. They also have the gas, which we'll go take a look at. Probably one of the most confused, mismatched product launches in recent history. They took a classic muscle car, great design, great sheet metal, but then they shoved an EV powertrain into it, and then they sucked at it. So from everything I've read, this car drives wonderfully as a GT car. It's literally a Grand Touring sedan or coupe. It's not a muscle car. The EV range sucks, the EV charge speed sucks, the software sucks, and the Dodge faithful really wanted nothing to do with it because it didn't have a combustion engine in it. They canceled almost every other trim of it now. I think they were going to do both a two-door and a four-door launch. They were going to do a Scat Pack version of it, but all the trims got canceled. I think they're down to just one trim now on the EV. They're hedging on the gas version, which has a six-cylinder, and they're probably going to bring a V8 out as well. Interesting things to note on this, it's longer and wider than a Toyota Sienna. I mean, this thing is massive. The other interesting thing is on the gas version, because it was designed as an EV first, they literally have the cutout for the battery still on the gas version. So there's just an empty cavern underneath the car. But you know what? I'm curious. I would like to drive one. I don't think I would ever own one though. It looks great. Looks great. So IONIQ 5 and, you know, a lot of these EVs are pumping fake engine noises inside the car to basically help you, you know, drive, because when you're tracking a car, you know, you're used to engine and rev points or whatever. The Dodge takes a different approach. They've mounted a subwoofer underneath the back of the car. They call it the Fratsonic chamber exhaust. It's complete marketing mumbo jumbo, but basically it's a loud PA system that emulates some sort of gas engine noise. And it's so loud that it's actually rivals like a Hemi at full throttle, wide open throttle. Why? I don't know, completely useless. Also, now you've got electronics back here that are gonna get wet and water's gonna get into it. But hey, you know, it's Dodge. So new for this year, this is the Charger with the six-cylinder. So they've replaced the E-motor with an actual combustion motor. Dodge and a lot of the American automakers are now starting to backtrack on their EVs. You're starting to see more gas engines. They brought the V8 Hemi and put it back in the Ram. And a couple little notes there, a couple little bits of irony. So on the Ram, and now when you get a V8 Hemi on the Ram, it comes with what they call a badge of protest, which is basically the Ram head on over a V8 engine block. And it's kind of ironic because, you know, they're saying, oh, we're protesting the move towards EVs. Yet right over there is their EV muscle car. So the same company that's, you know, now going all the in back on V8 engines and V6 motors, well, they're still making electric muscle cars as well. So they're trying to play both fields. I get it, you know, it's all marketing, but it's just kind of funny that, you know, the pendulum swings here.
But Charger nowadays means four-door, right?
Yeah, so they have both 2-door and 4-door variants of the Charger now.
Oh, that's confusing.
There is no Challenger. They've killed the Challenger
I
off.
see, I see.
So this is the Chevy Equinox EV. Next to it is the Blazer EV. These are both GM Ultium-based platforms. Last time we were at the auto show, we saw the prototypes of these. That's how long ago it was. But these are now both on the road. The Equinox is one of the best values as far as EVs that get over 300 miles of range. I think these start around 35,000 or so. They have fast charging, good range. One of the downsides, though, is GM's removing CarPlay. It started with these. They took CarPlay out of these, and now they're removing them out of almost all their lineup. They just want to control the flow of data. We'll see, because now that Tesla's rumored to be bringing CarPlay to their cars, we'll see how GM responds there. But I'm curious to get behind the wheel here and see how it feels inside, because I think this is, as far as EVs go, one of the best values on the market right now. Lewis, you sat in the Prologue. Why don't you hop in the other Prologue here and tell me how it compares?
Oh, this is worse.
So
a lot shinier.
How's the Honda Prologue?
Slightly better, I guess, in comparison. I just don't like GM interiors, man.
Isn't it amazing they still feel cheap after all these years?
Yeah. And it's not even the fit and finish anymore. Or it's not so much like...
I think it's material quality.
The material visual quality.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is okay, actually. But a lot of shiny surfaces.
Yeah, I put a cover on my Kia's piano black plastic to block it. There's a lot of surfaces you would have to cover.
But there's a lot of shiny chrome in here, you know? Package seems quite good. Feels pretty spacious for an EV.
So these on the used market are cratering in price. You can pick these up for like mid-20s now.
Ooh, that's good value at that.
After just a couple years on the market.
Have they done any significant updates then recently? Or?
Not really.
EPA range, 312 with front-wheel drive. I like this interior better. Do you know why?
More than the Blazer.
There's less shiny surfaces in here.
What's going on with this gradient on the door?
That just looks like spray paint, Andrew. That just looks like a really bad spray paint job.
So this is the Polestar, what is this, 4, 3, 2? Polestar 4. No rear window for whatever reason, because that's what you want. You just want a camera in a rainy city and state so that you can never see out the back. You know, we're complaining about how IONIQ 5 and EV6 don't have a rear wiper. How about just no rear glass at all?
You don't need a rear wiper if you don't have a rear window.
That is true.
That is a top tip.
So this is an actual camera. This is not a mirror. And so you can flip it to a mirror, but you can't actually see anything when you do it because there's no rear window.
That's crazy.
So what's the point of this? By far the oddest design choice.
Yeah. So this is the INEOS Grenadier. And I guess Elliott Bay is an authorized dealership for them, which is really interesting because Elliott Bay is a local luxury used car dealership here in Seattle. But the Grenadier, it looks like a Land Rover, but it is not. Drivetrain-wise, it's actually a lot of BMW components. It's a very unique car. It's very optimized for off-road, Andrew, meaning unlike a modern Land Rover that's actually quite good on-road, they're very luxurious and whatnot. The Grenadier is very much designed for off-roading. So all the switches inside are designed for you to add aftermarket accessories, different auxiliary functions. You can like connect them to like roof lights and whatnot. It's a very, very focused car. Zadart Exotic Car Rentals has a booth here, so just a couple random selection. Audi S2, I think. I like the Washington-style European plate.
Classic.
A 39 Lincoln Zephyr, apparently. Before we get too far, you gotta film the PLP50. It was the smallest car in the world. I'll insert a video of me getting in and out of it. The owner was nice enough to let us sit in it. He was also nice enough to let me lift this one up, the red one.
Nice.
We're filming.
So here's the ID Buzz.
It's the modern version, or sorry, the retro version of it.
That's what started the whole thing.
Avants having some sort of exhibit that's themed. It looks like this year's theme is Purple Rain. So it looks like there's a bunch of really cool purple cars. We'll start with this Midnight Purple Nissan Skyline. And I believe this was a factory color. And as Andrew pans around, he's going to be able to show you that it's not just purple, but it will actually change colors.
You know, this and Millennium Jade were my two favorite Skyline colors.
Was that one that transitions from green to gray?
It was, yeah, it was a very kind of like light green.
Interesting.
And I want to say they brought both of these back on the R35 at some point.
So this isn't a wrap. This is an actual factory color.
Correct, yes.
Amazing. This is a 2025 McLaren 750S in what's called, Malvine Blue. Malvine Blue. Malvine Blue? I'm not sure. It looks purple to me, but you know, what do I know? Ooh, Ferrari SF90XX. Color's called Viola Hong Kong. I like the yellow. I'm typically not a purple fan, but every single shade of purple here is fantastic. Absolutely love it. All right, we have an E30 BMW. This is a 316i Touring. Color's called Daytona Violet. I kind of want one of these. I think we're gonna have to have one of these eventually, Andrew.
It's just a different era, man.
It is a different era. I can't believe how small it is. This was how small 3 Series was.
And look at that grill.
Yeah.
Look at that kidney bean.
Oh man, I'm sure we're gonna talk about that later on. It's gonna be fantastic. I have no idea what this is. I like the red brake calipers. Purple with the cream interior. Fantastic.
You know, the one thing they're missing is a purple Lamborghini.
That's true. That is a missed opportunity.
Rick Ross would not approve.
Yeah, maybe there's more down there. Maybe there's more down there. We always love a good RS6 Avant. Anytime we can get a nice wagon, this is called Merlin Purple, this color. Very good. God, I don't think I've seen a Caterham in person before. I didn't realize how freaking small they were. That's awesome. Got a Mitsubishi VR4. I think in the States we call this a Galant? Color's called Trigger Mauve Pearl, though. This is like the least purple car here,
Yeah.
which makes it quite interesting. It's basically gray.
Agreed.
It's like gray with a hint of purple. Let's go around, take a look at that. So we've got this Cuda here in what's called Plum Crazy Purple. If I had a Challenger, it'd probably be this purple. Wow. I like the matching wheels too. I would like to know which of these colors are factory
Yes.
and which are more aftermarket.
Yes.
This is an E36 M3 in Techno Violet. I think it's appropriately named. A car that has really shot up in value the past 5 to 8 years or so. Everyone wants an E36 right now. A C8 Corvette, which again, it's a very interesting shade of purple because I would say it's a little bit more blue than purple.
Yeah, I would agree.
Hysteria Purple is what the Z06 is called. Oh, I love the Z06. I wish I could hear it. You know, they bought a Ferrari 458 to reverse engineer to make it sound like that.
Great value too.
It is.
Performance for $1, one of the best on the market right now.
Absolutely astonishing. It looks fantastic. I'm sure it drives fantastic. All the reviews have been fantastic. So that's going to be us here at the Seattle Auto Show. Hope you enjoyed what you saw. We covered a couple of different EVs. It's funny, the EV market is quite interesting. I think for a long while, everyone was trying to make an EV and they were trying to come up with either the bespoke EV platforms or they were trying to update their existing platforms to accommodate an EV. And it's been kind of fun seeing the different advancements in technology, advancements in range and whatnot. I think for me though, I've seen a lot of these companies kind of taper off. It seems like EV range has kind of leveled off a little bit. We might be coming into a bit of a plateau in terms of development, at least from legacy manufacturers. Speaking of legacy manufacturers, it's interesting to see which manufacturer has been going all in on EV, or they were all in on EV and now they're pulling back, right? So Andrew talked about the Dodge Charger, whatever the EV called, the Charger Daytona or whatever, and they were all in on it being an EV muscle car, and now they're like adding a gas engine back into it, right? You have manufacturers such as Honda that has a partner with GM in order to make an EV, and even GM themselves, they're kind of hesitant on if they want to go all in on EVs or not. And so it's a really crazy time in the automotive world. Speaking of the automotive world as a whole though, enthusiast cars are also slowly making a comeback as well, right? We see Subaru still making the BRZ, we see Honda making the Prelude, right? We talked about how the pricing might be a little bit challenging, but I'm so excited that they are trying to make a car like that, trying to fill that gap in the market, trying to answer to the enthusiasts and kind of show that they are still listening and that they still want to make a car that is for enthusiasts and not just for commuting purposes. So it's been really interesting this year to see kind of where EVs are going and also how enthusiast vehicles are slowly coming back. And that's the change that we've been seeing this year. So hope you enjoyed what you've seen, and let us know what car most interested you, and maybe we can provide you more information on it. That's going to be it for us, and hopefully we'll see you guys next year. Take care.